Greetings, vinyl community, and welcome to VC Friday. Now, this is not the video I'd planned to make this week, but last week, after I showed some music by Charles Ives with this recording of the Holidays Symphony, I got a good response to that, and I sort of mentally filed away the idea that I'd like to do a video fully about Charles Ives in the future. It's something I didn't plan to do right away, but just an idea for a later video. Until I discovered that this coming Sunday, October 20th, is Charles Ives' 150th birthday. It is the sesquicentennial of Charles Ives. So we really have to celebrate that now, because Charles Ives is a really strong and important figure in American music. He has been called the first truly American composer, and certainly is the quintessentially American composer, like even more so than someone like Aaron Copland. Copland had more Europe to him, I think, than old Charlie Ives did. So we're going to talk about Charles Ives, and I'll show some records, but the first piece of music I want to mention, I don't have a vinyl copy to show, so I'm going to put a link in the description of this video for a YouTube video that I recommend people have a look at. It's The Unanswered Question, and it's a very accessible piece of music, and it's really cool because it's a storytelling piece of music, basically, but it's very, very simple and easy to follow, even though it has some really kind of avant-garde elements in its nature, in its harmonies, and in its actual content, but the overall story of it is very easy to get. And what happens in The Unanswered Question is that you have the strings playing this mysterious background sound, just like a backdrop of the void or the universe and stars. And after this is established for a little while, the trumpet comes in, and the trumpet plays this 5-note questioning motif. And that's answered by the woodwinds. And the trumpet plays the questioning motif again. And the woodwinds respond again. And this goes on 6 times. And each time, the woodwind response, which starts out calmly, gets louder and more agitated and thornier. And finally, the trumpet asks the question one last time, and there is no answer. End of piece. And in the video, you can watch the sheet music go by for this. Now, even if you don't know how to read music, you can still follow what's happening just from a graphic perspective, because you can see how every time the woodwinds play, there are more notes. You see it getting more dense every time. And you can see how everything the strings play are just the long notes. So have a listen to that if you've not heard that piece. Charles Ives was born, as you might have guessed from my introduction, on October 20th of 1874. He was born in Danbury, Connecticut, and was a crusty old Yankee to his bones. He was a true son of New England. He went to Yale and was a member of the Delta Kappa Epsilon fraternity, which is something that he will make reference to in many of his works. He studied at Yale with the composer Horatio Parker, and some of the most notable music that we have today was actually music that he wrote while still a student at Yale. And one of those pieces is the first of the 2 string quartets that appear on this album. Now, there's some more Americana for you in that choice of cover design. They know what they're doing when they choose American Gothic for the cover of a Charles Ives album. But the first string quartet was a student work. It was turned into Horatio Parker as an assignment. And it was originally written as a 4-movement piece, which is pretty standard for string quartets, but Ives later removed the first movement, which was a fugue, and rewrote it as an orchestral arrangement and made it part of his Fourth Symphony later in life, but we'll get to that one later. The remaining music does contain one of Ives' most notable characteristics, which is his use of quotation, his use of patriotic songs, popular songs, and certainly hymns, which you hear hymn tunes in this first string quartet. You also hear an experiment in the last movement of writing music where the first violin and the viola are playing in 3/4 time, while the second violin and the cello are playing in 4/4 time. Even today, that would be unusual, if not unheard of, and it certainly was unheard of in 1896, at the time he submitted this to Horatio Parker. So the first string quartet is also known as a revival service, as befits its use of hymn tunes for its material, including Stand Up for Jesus. The second string quartet is a much more mature work and contains great helpings of Ives' most salty characteristics. It's got a program of sorts. It's in 3 movements, which are described as discussions, arguments, and the call of the mountains. And in Ives' own words, the string quartet is for 4 men who converse, discuss, argue politics, fight, shake hands, shut up, then walk up the mountainside to view the firmament. The fight scene evidently involves a lot of arguing over the Civil War, because it contains a lot of tunes associated with the Civil War, including Dixie and Marching Through Georgia. Columbia, the Gem of the Ocean, which I mentioned in terms of the Holiday Symphony. That's one you hear all over the place in Ives' music. That makes an appearance. Whereas things get a little more rarefied when everyone decides to shake hands and walk up the mountain, because Ives begins quoting from Tchaikovsky and Beethoven instead of old popular tunes. Not that he's forgotten the hymn tunes, because he has Nearer, My God, to Thee in there. It's also a piece where in the score itself we see a lot of Ives' feisty personality. He has descriptions such as playing con scratchy or con fistiswato. He also makes a number of references in the marginal notes to his character of Rollo. Rollo is his caricature of a critic or a listener who is bound by musical convention and insists that music follow the rules and has to be pretty. And Ives absolutely loved poking fun at Rollo. Another work dating from Ives's college years is his First Symphony, performed here by Eugene Ormandy and the Philadelphia Orchestra. This is a record I've just added to my collection. You see it's a promo copy with the timing strip, which was so loose I thought it might just pop off very easily, but it seems to be securely glued over on the left side. The First Symphony, as expected from a student work, is more conservative, more traditional than a lot of what we associate with Ives. A little bit more European influence there. Still, Ives' professor, Horatio Parker, objected to Ives' free use of tonality and insisted on some more conventional uses of keys. So an ending in D minor where it began was inserted, and Ives replaced the second movement in G flat with one in F that would satisfy his professor, and saved the more incorrect movement for his second symphony. This LP also includes Three Places in New England, which is a more classic work by Ives. The three places celebrated in this work are the St. Gaudens, meaning a statue by St. Gaudens, in Boston Common. And the statue is of Colonel Shaw, the white commander of the all-black 54th Massachusetts Regiment in the Civil War. The second movement is Putnam's Camp, Reading, Connecticut, and that's a Revolutionary War site. And finally, the Housatonic at Stockbridge. The Housatonic, it's a scenic view of the Housatonic River at Stockbridge, Massachusetts. Now, the Putnam's Camp piece is very much a companion piece to the 4th of July movement from the Holiday Symphony. It is a 4th of July celebration and was actually drawn from some organ works that Ives had composed earlier, and the Holiday Symphony movement was drawn from the same source. After graduating from Yale, Ives went into the insurance business. Knowing that his music was going to be at odds with the musical establishment and that it was no way for him to make a living, he found insurance to be a very satisfying field for himself. He was actually a very successful and innovative insurance man and pioneered the concept of estate planning. One of Ives' most celebrated compositions is his Piano Sonata No. 2, known as the Concord Sonata. It's a conceptual piece with each movement being dedicated to a different writer from Massachusetts. It has movements dedicated to Nathaniel Hawthorne, Ralph Waldo Emerson, Henry David Thoreau, and the Alcotts. I don't have a vinyl copy of that to show, but I do have a copy of the also excellent Sideways First Piano Sonata, also a quite massive piece, about 40 minutes long. And once again, look at that cover. The cover artist knew his brief. This is American music. Ives wrote a lot of chamber music, and one of my favorite collections is this LP on Columbia, conducted by Gunther Schuller, Calcium Light Night. The title refers to a tradition at Yale where the fraternities would have an evening procession where they would collect the new pledges, and the procession would be lit by a limelight or a calcium light. So that's a tone picture of that tradition at Yale, and again, it's something from Ives' fraternity days, and that's something that he would often mention in his little marginal notes or commentary that he wrote. He wrote a lot of memos and commentary about his works, and in fact, I have this book collecting a lot of that material, and I did have another book on Ives I wanted to pull out, or a book by Ives, of Ives's writings, Essays Before a Sonata. I cannot find it, so I may not have that one anymore. But this LP is just so full of wonderful music, and it's just such a great showpiece or showcase for Ives's imagination that it's one I really recommend as a starter if you don't know Ives. And one of my very favorite compositions by Ives is the first piece on side 2, Scherzo, Over the Pavements, which is a sort of musical depiction of just various footsteps heard on the sidewalk, walking in everybody's individual rhythm at the same time. Another one of my very favorite works by Ives in the chamber music vein is his piano trio, performed here by Paul Zukovsky on violin, Robert Sylvester on cello, and Gilbert Kalish on piano. Fantastic work. It begins with just the piano and the cello, and then it has a passage for just the piano and the violin. So it goes through both of those duos before it gets to a full trio version treating the same material that we'd heard earlier. There's a great scherzo for the second movement, full of quotations of well-known tunes, and finally a more peaceful ending which culminates in a quotation of Rock of Ages. Ives' own sketch for a title reads, Trio Yalencia, trio belonging to Yale. Trio Yalencia and Americana for violin, cello, piano. Fancy names. Real name, Yankee Jaws at Mr. or Eli, Yale's School for Nice Bad Boys. The title of the second movement, TSIAJ, signifies this scherzo is a joke. Some of Ives's most experimental work is the music he wrote for Quartertone Piano, with keyboards tuned in notes that fall in between the notes of the standard musical scale. This is not the most easy listening of Ives's work, and that's maybe saying something. Probably Ives' most momentous work is his massive, powerful Symphony No. 4, which is scored for a huge orchestra supplemented by organ and choir and various offstage ensembles, adding a distant, three-dimensional aspect to the musical presentation. The second movement is a long piece called A Comedy by Ives, and it's very much in the same vein as the scherzo is a joke from the string trio or the arguments from the string quartet No. 2. The third movement is the fugue that was hived off of the string quartet No. 1, reworked for this piece. It's an incredible, epic piece of music. Ives actually attempted to top it around the same time he was composing this. He sketched out a universe symphony, which was never completed. That was something that he pictured as being performed by multiple orchestras that would be outdoors in different parts of the landscape, in valleys, on mountains, probably in the middle of the river for all I know. But as it is, we have this great, great piece. Something mysterious happened to Charles Ives in 1927 when he announced that he could no longer compose new music. He continued to work at his insurance job until 1930, but after retiring he would only revise his existing compositions and didn't produce any new music until his passing in 1954. So that's your classical edition of VC Friday. Thanks very much for watching. Be well. I will talk with you again soon. Bye-bye for now.